Good. Welcome to RockEyez, man.
Thank you very much for having me.
No problem. Murray Emery, um, band Prisoner. Tell me a little bit about actually over the last month, I had 5 or 6 Canadian bands contacted me for interviews and stuff like that. Um, why do you think all of a sudden like Canadian bands are getting even more popular than before in the US?
Well, I think it's one of those things where, I mean, with any musician and artist, especially coming out of COVID and everything, we had a lot of time to not only work on our craft, but kind of develop ourselves as musicians. So coming out of it, we kind of had plans for what we wanted to do as artists and bands and things like that. But at the same time, I think the community overall is continually growing. I mean,
Right.
I've spent time across Canada. I lived in LA for a year and a half to kind of get to understand the music scene down there and learn the industry. Because I'm not only just in a band, I also own a recording studio, and that's what I do full time.
Right.
So for me, I kind of get to see both sides of it as a producer engineer as well as a an artist. And I think the scene here overall is just continuing to grow exponentially because I feel like people have really grasped the concept that you need each other in order to make this work and grow, and it's become such a tight knit community, you know, across the country. I
Right.
have bands that I continually support that are in Ontario, and I'm in Alberta here in Western Canada, and bands in British Columbia, and we're all kind of interacting and talking to each other and posting each other's music and supporting each other. So I think that's a large part of it.
Right. I also, it seems like a lot of diversity in the music because a couple of bands were like 80s style, then I got metal, and then not really pop, but like, AOR type stuff. And it looks like, you guys are going in the right direction. And the United States is kind of like going in the wrong direction. And, we're not doing too good over here. It's like everything's the same. Like I mean, I get like 200 press releases a day, and like every one, I just they're all the same.
Mhm.
Every once in a while, like you guys, I pick out something good. So like congratulations on that. Tell me a little bit about when the band started in 2020.
Absolutely, yeah. So Prisoner has been a concept for me since probably 2017. Of course, I was a teenager at that point, and it was a pipe dream to be a musician. But the band fully formed in 2020 when I was going to production school in London, Ontario, and I found the members kind of going through that through school. I found the bass player, and then the drummer, and then the guitar player kind of came last. And we had a working lineup there where we recorded the original version of the first record, and I ultimately became the singer kind of last minute. I wasn't supposed to be the original singer. Um, so I just kind of, it was trial by fire, just give her and see what happens. And
Right.
we put something out that we think was pretty cool. And for the time for us, as engineering students, putting something out that we did on our own and tracking everything during school hours. Like we did the entire drums for that record in 6 hours
Oh,
in one session, and then I did the rest of the guitar and bass during sessions because I didn't have the rest of the band at that time. And then we played a few shows in Ontario and built a decent following, and we were kind of doing what we were doing, and it was working. But then I ultimately ended up moving back to Calgary, and um, the musicians also just had different life paths. It wasn't a full career thing for them.
right.
And that's totally okay because I mean, when you're super young, you change constantly from year to year, even. So to find the right people, that's kind of ultimately where I went to California and was living there and was rotating band members and playing in other bands and just trying to understand the industry the best I could. And then
Right.
ultimately coming back to Calgary here at the end of, well, in the middle of 2023 and building my studio and ultimately rooting myself back here in the music community because I saw that Calgary specifically it's a large city, like we're 1.2 1.3 million people,
Right.
and it's a growing city for the arts. I think it's the next big city to become kind of one of the main forefronts for music as well as the movie industry and things like that for film. And ultimately I was able to find the current lineup with some of the best musicians I've ever played with. So I think we've set ourselves up to move forward in a very positive direction.
Cool. Now the band, did you have to audition them, or were they friends, or how'd that work?
So for the original lineup, one of them was a friend. He asked me, "Hey, can you teach me how to play guitar?" And I said, "No, I'm going to teach you how to play bass."
Right.
So he ended up playing bass, and then I met the original drummer through a friend through some recording sessions. I was going to a different recording school, and then the guitar player was a friend of a friend. And then for this lineup, I was just working in the industry as a sound tech, as an audio engineer, and I met the bass player teching for one of his other bands, and he was like, "Yeah, I'd love to be a part of this." And then our drummer Carl went to high school with our bass player Trevor, and they were both in band together. And then the guitar player we met through a mutual friend of ours who met him at a show, and he was like, "Hey, do you want to jam?" And he's like, "I don't actually have that much time because I'm in two bands, blah blah blah. But there's this guy Murray, and he has this band Prisoner. You should totally check him out." And we ended up hanging out, and we just hit it off, and we all just clicked pretty much immediately, even musically in terms of our chemistry. So
Right, right. Now tell me a little bit about your debut album, the self-titled one that came out in January.
absolutely, yeah. So that record, I call that one the Murray record in
Uh-huh.
regards to just that was all of the music that I was writing when I was 15 to 18.
Right,
And I had just hung on to that. And all of those songs to me were just, I guess, in a way, experimenting with how I was developing as a musician and as an artist because I started playing guitar at 15. So I came into the whole concept of musicianship very late
right.
in comparison to a lot of my peers. Like my drummer's been playing since he was a kid, type of thing. Um, but I think all of those songs they always have something that you can kind of draw from. Either you can always tap your toe to it. It's riff driven, and then lyrically for me, everything that I write about is conceptual. There's an idea, or I'm talking about a story or commenting on something in the world. And for me, it's I don't like to write super cheesy lyrics or like very upfront lyrics.
Right.
It always has an underlying meaning or can be interpreted in a way that makes sense to whoever's listening because to me I think art is very subjective and I think you need to give people the opportunity for their own personal perspectives.
And in August, you have an EP coming out.
Yeah, so our EP House of Cards is coming out August 21st, and those three songs are kind of a continuation of that first record. I mean, if you listen to the whole thing when it comes out, they're very different songs. Like we have a kind of a traditional thrash song, a borderline rock ballad, and then a more traditional rock and roll tune where you have the big guitar harmonies and the big anthemic choruses and stuff. But I think ultimately they do fit together under the scope of what Prisoner is and our sound. But I
Right,
also think if you were to put it on a full length record, the songs wouldn't necessarily make sense together.
right, right. Now your press release that came to us said recommended for Megadeth, AC/DC, and Judas Priest. I think you should add Metallica into that too.
Yeah,
'Cause I
absolutely.
definitely feel the Metallica, not vocally, but musically. Almost every song I hear, like Metallica, at least for me. Everyone
Absolutely.
has their own opinion, but I really enjoyed all three tracks. And you just sit back, listen to them, and you get the vibe of each track. And I enjoyed it. You know,
Thank you very much. I really appreciate that.
no problem. Now, the was the first single on a Sunday.
The first single was Skies Are Blackened.
Okay, cool, cool, cool. Why'd you go with an EP instead of a full length?
Well, I think for us, it was something that we just wanted to put more music out, and we re-released the first record in January of this year, where we remixed it and I retracked all the vocals because I had time to um, actually work at my craft as a vocalist because I
Right,
had some time, of course. So we re-released that, and we kept the original "Prisoner of Time" single up on streaming platforms with the music video. We still have pressed vinyl from the first version of the record that's for sale on our website. But for me, I wanted to put it out in a way that exactly kind of how I was hearing it in my head,
right.
and without kind of changing the original production of the music and things like that, just remix, master, and retracking the vocals. But So we had come off of that, and then we wanted to put out some more music without making people wait a whole
Right,
bunch, and that way we had, 10, 11 songs that we could play live, and as well as mix in some covers and things. And for us now, we're going back in the studio actually next week to record two more singles, an original and a cover
right,
for us that we already play live and we really enjoy doing. And then we'll be going back into the studio for a full length record in the fall, pretty much. So the goal for us was to just try to not only get this current lineup of the band in the studio writing, working together and building chemistry, but also just having something out that I think made sense in terms of how people are releasing as well. But of course, in our genre of music, and me specifically, I'm an album guy. So
right,
I would love to put out, a 12-song record that is its own entity.
right, right. What's your feeling about vinyl coming back?
I love vinyl. I mean, I'm definitely an old school analog music guy. Like we're sitting in my recording studio now, and you can see part of my console. But I love vinyl. I mean, I came into it kind of late. Like when I was a teenager, I was like, "Who cares?" Like I'm listening to music on the bus, at work, you know, streaming platforms and everything else. And
Right.
then I got into production and things like that, and kind of got into vinyl, and it was like
Yeah,
mind blowing in terms of the quality and hearing some of these original pressings of some of my favorite records, like hearing Master of Reality from Black Sabbath for the first time on vinyl is
right,
still, I think, one of my core memories just as a music fan in general.
right, right. Cool, cool. Now you guys got vinyl out now too. So like what does it feel like holding that album and just looking compared to like a CD or cassette and what's your feelings about that?
It's really cool. I mean, that's the exact reason why we wanted to press vinyl for that first record, and it's to me, it's a timestamp of who I was as a person and who the people in the band were as people, and we were a unit, and it was really cool to be able to put something out where we could physically hold that and be like, this is a thing. And I think that's for us as artists is a huge accomplishment, because that's kind of the whole point. I mean, we're only here for a certain amount of time, and if I can make an impact on the world and make it better or give people something that they can connect with, then that's the ultimate goal as a musician. So
What's the feeling like when your family, like your father or mother or whoever, um, look at that vinyl? He says, "Yeah, yeah, I remember that when I was 10 years old." Like like it got to be like a little funny, weird when your family says, "Yeah, when I was 10 years old, now it's all back again." It's pretty cool.
100%. My parents are huge music fans themselves, and they were the ones that influenced me, and of course the style of music that I listen to. And for them, even talking to my mom and dad about it, they were just like, this is really cool. And they saw the vision that I had as a young person, and they were like, okay, if you want to do this, here's kind of what you need to do to set yourself up for success.
Right.
So for them to be able to physically hold a record that I created is kind of mind blowing to them, because of course they said, back in the day, this is what we used to do. We'd sit in a
Yeah.
garage, drink beer, and listen to rock music. So
Cool, cool, cool. When you were younger, say your high school days and stuff like that, did you collect anything?
not necessarily in terms of vinyl. Like I got into it a little bit when I was more like 18, 19, coming out of high school.
Right.
I was in terms of music in general, like I loved music growing up, but I was more of an athlete. Like I was playing high level baseball, hockey. I did taekwondo for 20 years, pretty much. Like I started when I was 4, and I mean I still train on my own, but I haven't been properly training in a while. But it was something that music kind of came a little bit later.
Right.
Even just as a musician, like I'm a self-taught guitar player. I started at 15, and then when I was about 17, 18, that's when I realized I wanted to do this. I got an opportunity to go down to LA and play in this rock camp, and I got to play with Dave Mustaine, Paul Gilbert, and I got to play with Zach Wild at the Whiskey A Go Go. And there's footage of that on YouTube and stuff. And it's like my first time on stage. And after that, my parents and I were like, "You could maybe do this. Like, let's give this a go."
Right. Yeah. Wow. Wow. So you said you were into sports and stuff. Did you collect any cards?
Oh, absolutely. I probably have 6,000 hockey cards. Like, it's kind of ridiculous. And I mean, now my friends laugh and they're like, "You just collect guitars." And I mean, that's fair. I mean, at this point, I just use the studio as an excuse to buy more guitars for different sounds and whatever, but it's a problem.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Tell me a little bit about your merchandise for the band and where can people pick it up?
Yeah, absolutely. You can pick up our merchandise on our website at www.prisonerband.ca. We've got merch for everything that we've got coming out so far. We have merchandise coming for the EP that's going to be released when the EP comes out, and we've got hats, patches, stickers, pins. We've got the vinyl as well. We still have a few left of our uh, limited edition pressing for our first record. So we have the regular black vinyl, and then we made a limited 100 of our black and white splatter vinyl. So that's still up on our website, and you can also get it at shows when we're playing around locally, and planning to try to get on some larger tours and things next year. So
You said you're originally a bass player, guitar player, and stuff like that, and now vocalist. What was the first time, that feeling when you stepped in front of the microphone to sing in front of like an audience?
it was very interesting. I mean, for me, I always thought that my voice was my guitar,
Right,
and the first show we ever played under Prisoner was my guitar player's frat house on Halloween,
right.
and we played to like 300 people in this house, and it
Wow.
was the craziest show we ever played. um, because like I built the stage out of stolen pallets and plywood, so I had time to kind of compartmentalize. Like, okay, you're the singer, you're the front man, and you need to kind of have this energy. And I knew that I was still learning as a vocalist in terms of like my overall craft and my ability. So my goal was to just go up there and deliver a performance that people could connect to, and it definitely worked, and it was a lot of fun. And it was the first of many shows, of course, and then having the time to develop as a vocalist coming into myself now, it's I think Skies Are Black and is a testament to that. Like, the reason I that song wasn't on the first record was because I couldn't sing super high yet, and I didn't want to put something out that I wasn't proud of. Like, that was the first song I had ever written as a musician for Prisoner. I was like 16.
Wow. Cool, cool. Tell me any shows coming up or touring plans?
Yeah, so right now we're just doing a bunch of local stuff. We're playing in Edmonton here on September 7th, and we're working on getting more shows here in Calgary, Banff, Lethbridge, Red Deer, as far west as Kelowna, and as far east as Winnipeg right now going into the fall. And then we'll be going back into the studio for our second record. And then the goal is to just try to expand further in terms of festivals and, of course, touring and stuff going into next summer.
What's it feel like when someone comes up and asks for your autograph?
It's pretty cool. I mean, it's one of those things where I'm just like, I'm just a guy, but at the same time, I also completely understand where, I'm a huge fan of certain artists, and even though I understand that, even from an engineering perspective, that they're peers in a way, or if I ever get the opportunity to work with people or play shows with them, I'm still a massive fan, and they were formative in terms of my musical tastes and just me as a musician. So I completely understand where it's like having that feeling of like having this person's autograph or being really excited to get to meet someone like that.
Right. Uh, if you had a chance to tour with somebody, who would it be?
Ooh. Well, I think for us, I mean, the whole go big or go home thing. I mean, we're all massive fans of Megadeth. We would love to
Right.
tour with them. Um, I'm personally a massive fan of Black Veil Brides. They were one of the reasons why I picked up a guitar, because they were the first band that I found on YouTube, actually, that to me was like, oh, this is a band that's doing something now, or like rock music isn't non-existent or something of the 70s and 80s, because I grew up listening to only classic rock music, and I
Right.
had just stumbled upon one of their videos, and then it just kind of snowballed from there. So for me personally, it'd probably be those two bands.
Right. Cool. Cool. Uh, will you have plans to come to the United States for some shows?
Absolutely. Yeah, I have a ton of friends in the Los Angeles area that went to Musicians Institute, and are all fantastic musicians in their own rights. I'm good friends with the guys in the band called Vela La Vela, and we've been talking about doing some Western North American stuff because we have obviously all the gear for here in Canada, and they have dates and venues and things like that. They've already played in the States, so that we can try to get a tour going together where there's some cross pollination. So that's kind of our goal for next year, and kind of seeing what we can do and expand as much as we can. So
Oh, cool. How difficult is it not having like a major label releasing your material and doing everything in-house?
well, it's one of those things where, in comparison, it is a little bit more difficult because you're kind of doing everything yourself.
Right,
But for me, I've researched this industry extensively, as a teenager. And, part of the reason why I have a recording studio is I know that it's very difficult to make it as a musician. And for me, I wanted to do everything as musically for free and be able to pursue my own passion, but also be within the realm of the music industry, so that all of my contacts for the studio are also contacts for the band and vice versa.
right,
So for us, you know, we're lucky that we get to save money on recording, because I have a fully functional studio that is fully professional, old school analog with full console, outboard gear, and a full live room and things. Um, but it is difficult because we don't necessarily have the contacts, and for us, it's about building the community in the industry, and that's kind of where it comes from. And for us, all of our growth is very organic, rather than being a part of a label that already has all of the industry contacts and they push you in the right places at the right time. But I think at the same time, it's also great because we have full creative control over who we are, what we do, and everything that we do is 110% authentic. And because of what we've already done with our music, our recording, our branding, and who we are as people, and Prisoner itself is already a registered corporation, we're protected in any way, shape, or form. So if we do ever get the opportunity to sign with a label or a distribution company, we get to keep them accountable, because we're like, hey, you know what? Like, we can do all of these things on our own, but we want to work with you. But at the end of the day, every industry and business is, boils down to money and what you can do for them. And, we want to be able to not only make enough money for us to continue to do this, but, if we're working with a label, of course, they're going to want to look for profit from us.
right,
So if we can keep them accountable and go, hey, you know what, we can do this, this, and this, you have no upfront overhead,
right,
you know, but it's how you invest in us and what you do for us. That's how you're going to get a return on your investment.
right,
That's where, I think we have an advantage over a lot of other bands and artists that are just musicians,
right,
and they don't necessarily have the overall knowledge to be like, hey, this is kind of how this industry works. Because I'm lucky enough to have been a lot of places in North America, in LA, New York, Toronto, and Ontario, as well as here, and kind of get to see firsthand from a production engineer perspective as well as a musician perspective. And I've been very lucky to work with, some bands that are really great and have been around a while. Like locally, there's a band here called Osiren, and I work extensively with a few of their members, and they've been around a while. They've been touring. They just got back from a European tour, and they've been very great at mentoring us in a way, and talking to us about the industry and how it truly works at the low levels building up to stadium tours.
cool. Now, if a new band came to you and asked you about the music industry, could you tell me some pros and cons?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I'm very straightforward, like especially as a production and engineer, or even a studio owner. When people come here, I want to be more than just the guy that presses record, because I am in a band. I'm doing the exact same thing that they're trying to do.
Right,
And I think the one of the pros is that if you do make it, you get to have a really cool job and you get to pursue your passion. And I mean, let's be honest, we're rock musicians. We're not in it for the money. If we
right.
were, we'd be playing pop or country,
Yeah,
especially here in Alberta. Um, but I think one of the pros to being independent is that you do have full creative control, and you know the results are going to be based on the effort that you put in.
right,
I think one of the cons is that you don't necessarily have the media support that some of these larger bands have, or the upfront financial support. Like for me, I've invested everything that I have into this. Like I grew up doing commercial construction for my parents' company,
Right,
and I saved all of my money through that because I didn't really know what I wanted to do, and that was invested in the studio and in the band.
right,
And I think that's the biggest con is that you don't have the social media and marketing support, and you don't have the financial support, and that's where a lot of artists go wrong, where they sign with a label and they go, oh well, we want to re-record this and this and this, and the whole goal is to get their masters and have creative control over their music and when and what they release.
right,
And once you sign those contracts, yeah, you may get on some tours, but the long-term game in terms of longevity isn't great. Like you hear of like the damn Yankees in the 90s
right,
when grunge came around. They were paid out of their contract to not put out a third record so they can make room for grunge.
right,
So if that doesn't tell you what's going on in terms of a business perspective in the industry, I don't know what does. Or even in the 80s where you sign a band like Guns N' Roses and then you have another band that sounds like Guns N' Roses,
right,
both will get signed to the same label, and then the label will shelve one of them to reduce competition.
right, yeah,
It's not like that stopped in 2024.
right, yeah, uh,
So being trying to protect yourself is the most important thing, to be able to negotiate in that sense. And there are great labels and great people out there in this industry that want to do great things with good bands and good music, but you need to be able to approach it in a way that you can still be creative, but be prepared and understand the big picture of what this industry truly is, and it is a business.
right,
And that's where people get preyed on for their hopes and dreams.
right. What would a dream come true be for you?
Honestly, I think the dream would just be able to play music with my friends full time, and get to tour and release music where at the end of the day I get to make an impact. And I mean, right now I already feel like the dream is already coming true, in the sense that I'm lucky enough to have people like yourself care about what I'm doing, and it means a lot to me as an artist and as a person. And I have my recording studio. I mean, I'm a pretty young guy, like I'm 24,
Right,
and I already have my own business, and I've got a band, and I'm playing music with my best friends, and that is the dream. And then the ultimate goal, I guess, would be to tour with big bands and make enough money to be able to not only support myself, but a family in the future and things like that. So
cool. Cool. Well, Murray, Prisoner, check out the band. Check out, they got new material coming out. They just released a self-titled debut in January. Pick it up, support the band. Would you like to say anything to the fans out there?
just thank you so much for taking the time to, of course, listen to this and support the band. And we wouldn't go anywhere without the people that take the time to listen to us and support us. So everything that we have is owed to yourself and the people that give us opportunity. So
Cool, cool. Congratulations, man.
awesome. Thank you so much. I appreciate you taking the time.
Bye-bye.
Take care.